everybody, and welcome to tonight's edition of Mountain Goat's Classic Climbs. This week we've got something a little bit different for you. It's not quite your traditional up the mountain climb. We've got a loop for the Imola World Championship course from 2020. Here we go, here's the course. This is a 28.8 kilometre course, but it still features over 550 metres of climbing. A couple of very steep sections as well. You can see the profile there in the top left hand corner of the screen. Some nice descents as well, a little bit of recovery. Now most of the climbing is in the first 60% of the course, the second half being a little bit more rolling but generally downhill. So this is the course that Julian Alaphilippe won his rainbow jersey on, and Anna van der Breggen for the ladies. Both of them were over a minute clear of the chasing riders, having made their attacks on those steeper slopes. So there we go, 28.6 kilometres in total, and quite technical in places. Here I am, hi everyone. Not racing this evening. I'm currently preparing for the Giro d'Europa event that's coming up next Monday for 5 days in a row on RGT. You can see all the details for that on rgtdb.com. But back to tonight's action, you can see there on the left hand side, the bottom of the screen, look at that profile. Very much up and down, some dark red sections all the way through, very stripy, showing that it's always changing in intensity. There's very few areas to rest. Riders are getting in onto the start line there. We've got some familiar riders here, Jez Reed, John Samu, Stephen Bellio. These guys are quite often to be found climbing up the mountains. Anders Ostergaard, I know he's signed up for Giro d'Europa. Andrei Karupka, he's a fairly new rider to RGT, so give him a shout out. Nice to have you on board, Andrei. Also Andrei Ivanov, Paul Pedal from OTR. So yeah, we've got a Jan Decker as well, a late sign up, he's snuck in. He'll be one to watch out for today. I imagine he could do quite well on this course. So we're just about 10 seconds out from the start. Then also Alex Plager in the pen as well there. He's also just snuck in, also from the Ratio Racing team. Right, here we go then. 3 seconds to start. And away we go. Look at that. Paul Pedal launching like a rocket there. Stretching it out right from the start. No messing around. Slightly downhill to begin with. Minus 0.3 grip descent. Already he's at a 20 metre gap. Now you can see there how undulating the course is. So it is going to break up quite quickly, I think. Even in this first part of the course, when traditionally you have that lead group sticking together, you can see already it's quite strung out behind there. Just showing that it's quite an early fierce pace as they come up to the start of this first little red section. So any section that you see red on the gradient when it's on screen, that means it's over 6% gradient. Very dark red sections, that's over 7.5%. But some of these gradients today will be 15%, so very steep. Keep an eye on the top right hand corner of your screen. That will show you some of the course details. You can see there that currently 4.4% slope, slight orange section. So when that's on screen, you can see just how steep it is. So 28 kilometres to go, 3/4 of a kilometre down. And here's our front group then. They've reeled in our early breakaway. They're over that first little bump, and there's 11 riders in this little group here. As we run through, we've got Jan Decker, Paul Pedal, John Samu, Aru, Ostergaard, Pascal, Pedersen, So a couple of Spanish riders, a couple of German riders, 4 German riders by the looks of it in this group. So I'm not sure if we're going to be following the lines of a real world championship and having our nationalities working together, or whether it's just going to be every man for himself. You see that there's Plager and Decker from the Ratio racing team. As always, they like to get into a lot of events. Those are very strong guys. Got the OTR team in here. Jez Reed in the orange rally kit there, currently in 3rd place. He's riding for the Pedalers team. And as they're on this slightly drag uphill, those guys are just sticking together at the moment. So a few places further back then, here's Andrei Ripka, Romanian rider. He's got the Austrian Nutella for company. Always good to have a rider for company. Means you can get a bit of draft saving from them, you can take turns. So we see Peacock here, currently a little bit in between 2 groups. But it's all still quite close together. They'll have a chance to either push on and get onto that group just ahead with Bellio. Here we go, look, we've got 4 riders here. Bellio, also from OTR, GP, Nylin and Ivanov. A little bit of separation there. As we hit some of these red sections on the course, it'll all get switched around and changed up. These mountain goats races tend to favour the lighter riders who might not have the pure power for a sprint, but they have got the ability, due to very good power to weight ratios, to get up these climbs. You can see there the 2 red sections on the gradient. That's where we're going to see some defining moves. So that's Dolce on the right hand side, one of our female riders in this competition, and on the left, back to the front of the group, then we see a little bit of separation. This is Ajru. There they are, putting out a nice steady pace, 340 watts, heart rate's up at 175. Doesn't necessarily mean anything. Heart rate is a very individual metric. You can see some riders who'll be coasting along and their heart rate will be at 185, and other riders who are absolutely putting in max effort and their heart rate's 160. So can't read too much into that. But Rue here with a 5-second gap back to this chasing group. And we've got Pedro Cabramanca leading that chase, and there we go, look, his heart rate's down at 150. His bar underneath his name that you can see is in the green, with Samu also in the blue, green, and Reed just showing that they're not going too deep yet, as Reed now just goes into the red there, makes a little push forward. As we see on the right hand side, a little move, and riders now start to respond, as we see Gargilusk just trying to come across and close that gap. So what's look over 300 there, heart rate up at 179. They try to put that effort in to close across that gap to Rue. High cadence up over 100, spinning those gears. They've done well there. They created a little bit of a gap just to the Pascal here, and he's got a little bit of a gap back to the pack as well. So having that little gap's important, more so on the flat than when you're on the climb, because it means that those riders behind, they aren't able to benefit from that draft saving. When you're cycling along, the wind and the air is a big barrier to you. You need to push through that. It creates resistance. So if you're tucked in behind someone, you can save a little bit of energy. But it looks like this is coming back together. Those 3 riders whilst they're still on the front, the little group behind of 6 or 7, because they're a little bit of a bigger bunch, they're able to work together a little bit easier, and they've come back through and joined up. And here we see a little bit further back, Dolce then just being joined by Bellio, GP, Ivanov, and they've just dropped Nylin, who looks like he's going to be caught by Haripka, who dropped Matilla. So already little groups, little battles forming on the road. We've got a group of 4 just here. They seem to be working okay at the moment, and just ahead of them is Ritza. So they're currently in no man's land at the minute. They have dropped off the front group, not yet caught by the group behind. That's Lars Ritza. And now back on the front we've got Pedro Cabramanca now making the effort on the front. Steady pace, 200 watts. I think the riders here will probably just be looking to conserve a little bit of energy as they just come onto this downhill section. You don't want to get dropped at this point, but you can see already they've done 100 meters of climbing, and this next climb that's coming up is quite steep. Nice solid block of red there on the bottom of the screen. Some steep downhill sections here around the hairpins, giving them a chance to recuperate. But this next climb is going to be around about at least 200 meters of climbing, with some steep sections to begin with. So a few of these riders are probably just looking at that up the road, keeping an eye on that, and just trying to save a bit of energy, not go deep, not put any effort in on this descent. Save all your energy for the climbs. On the right hand side we've got a group of 5 then, they've caught Ritza. They're just cresting that first series of climbs, about to start the descent. They'll be doing well to stick together on that descent. And that descent will go pretty quickly. It'll only be a minute to 2 minutes on that descent, and then they'll be climbing again. You see Jan Decker there just pushing the pace on the front of the lead group. On your left hand side there, Ajru just slightly getting dropped, but they're nearly at the bottom of that hill, so he'll be able to get back in fairly quickly, I'd have thought. Maybe just using it as a slingshot, coming through the group as they go past the red warning triangle there, indicating the start of this climb at 6 kilometers. Here we go then. Will we see any early fireworks? Or will we just see the riders marking each other, checking out the gradient of this climb? Maybe it's a bit far out to be attacking. Still got 22 kilometers. And they're on a 12% gradient. Is that following group of 5 then? They are 600 meters further back, not quite yet at the bottom of the first descent. We'll see how they get on the first major climb of the course. We saw how they caught Ritza. His ride is about 30 seconds behind that chase group, or behind the lead group at the moment. They come onto that climb then. That's slightly misleading, that time gap, because one group is going uphill, the other's coming downhill. So I imagine that will start stretching back out again on this climb. So yeah, the speed has dropped right down, 10 kilometers per hour. Still on a 10% gradient on the left hand side, back with the leaders. They're going a little bit quicker, 13 to 14 kilometers per hour. They're going to be climbing for a little while. From bottom to top, probably a good solid 8 to 10 minutes of climbing. You can see there, 13% gradient, so it is quite steep. If anyone's familiar with the Cap Mentor course, that first climb, on a good day, that's a 10-minute climb for the leading pack. These leading riders, that's around about 5 watts per kilo. You'll see you climb up there in around about 10 minutes. Cap Mentor is going to be the first race, first stage of our Giro d'Europa. So these riders today are getting a good taste. This is actually a fairly similar course in terms of the elevation, 550 meters. This course is over 28 kilometers, and Cap Mentor is at 22.5 kilometers. So it's a bit shorter, but the same amount of climbing. It looks like a couple of riders then are just getting dropped off this leading group. We can see now Cabramanca there is at the back of the group. He's in 8th place. We were at 11 riders, and that's Garzialus, Pedersen and Fidel. They've been dropped out of that lead group, and this second group is slightly fragmenting as well, and at some point they might catch up with these riders, so definitely worth pushing on. There's an opportunity to improve your ranking on these steeper slopes as your watts per kilo becomes more relevant. It might be that those riders in the early group were able to stay there because the early part of the course, the first 5-6 kilometers, was actually shallower road, so a couple of steeper sections but fairly short. So now on this sustained climb, that's where they might be struggling a little bit. So Karepka and Attila, there's Hallam, still within touching distance. Peacock there just behind Hallam, keeping each other company. Not letting them get away, 7-8 meters gap, they're fairly consistent. Now back at the front then, we can see Rue again, one of the early aggressors, just pulling away off the front. Opened up a 34 meter gap back. They are then 260 watts, 280 watts, 300. So this went up in at 4.5 to 5 watts per kilo. That implies this rider is quite light, around about 60 kilos. So that's allowing them to climb up this hill fairly efficiently. Pedersen then just coming back a little bit, overtaking Garzialus. They're 240 meters back now. It looks like they're getting a little bit of a second wind, up to 4.5 watts per kilo. So they're in between the two groups currently. As the lead group comes off those steeper sections, now onto the slightly less painful 2.8%, 4%. Still climbing, still got a little way to go before this first climb does top out. You can see Rue there, not getting away. Down to 25 metres, but it is strung out behind. Look at that, big watts there by John Samu, using that big engine of his, 400 watts. Just trying to stay in touch and distance in contention. He's got riders around him. Pascal just bridging across at the moment to Rue. These 5 riders behind. Decker, Samu, Reed, Plager. They're currently sitting in a comfortable position as we crest this hill then. They'll be able to work well together on the descent. And there's a flattish section between the 2 climbs where they'll be able to work together. And I imagine they'll reel in Rue here on the front. So there's still 20 kilometres to go. Not even a third of the way into this race just yet. But Rue's pushing on at a steady pace. You can see now he's onto the descent. See a bit of rain falling. He's on the cobbled sections. None of that will impact the avatar within the game itself. There's no impact on his momentum or his speed from that. The blue bar there under his name, this green, eased off quite a bit, just coasting down this hill now. Holding off that chasing pack in behind. Even though he's not working too hard. Just at the top of this long descent, just a couple of kilometres. Take another look at Rue here. Into the aero tuck. Here comes the group behind them. They're just closing it back up on the descent. See Rue on the canyon with the DT Swiss wheels. So the bike choices don't make any difference within the game. They all behave the same. It's all about the rider, not about who's got the best equipment. You just watch a replay of the catch. But Rue just able to hook back on there, stay in contention. And it was Cabramanca who got dropped. Not sure if that was an error or whether they just blew up a little bit towards the top of that climb as the group tried to accelerate to close back up to Rue. But I did think that we'd dropped from 8 down to 7. Here he is, Pedro Cabramanca, currently 200 metres behind that leading group. He does have a 500 metre lead over our next duo on the road of Pedersen and Kardziolusk, Polish rider. I imagine that's a terrible pronunciation, so I do apologise for that. And then Porpadao, further kilometre behind those 2. So just Reed on the front. We hit some slightly flatter sections, 0.7% gradient. Let's drop down again a little bit and then it's fairly flat before a short, small, shallow climb. And then the real main event, there's a steep section to come around about 20 kilometres into the race. And I believe, from memory, that's where Alaphilippe made his move in the World Championships last year, used those steep slopes and then used the downhill section to stay away. So if you are watching on the live broadcast, then please do drop us a comment in the chat. We'll call it up on screen. got a question or want to show some support to a rider, we'd like to get that up and show that to everybody else. And if you are enjoying the stream, then please do throw it a like, subscribe to our channel, ZMS live stream on Facebook, Recycling News on YouTube. All helps with our exposure of the platform and helps with us to attract prizes for future events. So these four have managed to drop Dolce here on that climb, but GP, Rixa, Velio and Ivanov managing to stick together. Now Dolce's caught a little bit in no man's land on this descent. You can see they're on the 8-bar fixed gear bike. Wouldn't be my first choice in the real world on this course. Only got one gear, as I mentioned earlier. That doesn't matter on RGT. It's all about the rider, not about which virtual equipment they've got in game. Here's Nylin, Swedish rider who's managed to stay ahead of the replica here. Still putting in a nice little effort on this downhill. An Austrian rider, Nutilla, not quite able to do an Anna Kiesenhofer. But of course that's the women's Olympic gold medalist at the road race. She managed to beat Anna van der Breggen, the reigning world champion, and everyone else of course in that fantastic women's road race from the Olympics. So it looks like Peacock is he's been dropped by Hallam, who now has a 400 metre lead as they go over the crest of that first hill. And here's Gonzaga, Spanish rider. And a little bit further back we've got Van Kroonbroek. But back to the front, we've got some more action then. And it looks like Cabramanca is coming back on this group. When we last visited the front of the race, there was a 200 metre gap from these front 7 riders back to Pedro Cabramanca. But here they are, they're working hard, they're over 4 watts per kilo. But that front group has eased right off, and that's allowed them to close the gap. They're keeping their speed up. The others perhaps just knowing that they've got this other climb to come, doing what they can to save a bit of energy in the draft. Pedro working hard to get back into contact with these guys. If he can, he'll make contact before the climb, get a little bit of a rest by sitting in behind and on the wheels. But here's the first little precursor to the main climb. There's Rue. Sees Cabramanca coming and he puts in a big effort off the front. 75 metre gap now. That's the biggest gap we've seen so far by Rue. I think he knows if he wants to take the win today, he's got to make the effort on this climb, get a big gap. Hope that the steeper slopes cause the rest of the field to fragment, allowing them to stay away on the second half of this course. So this is on the first section, which is not inconsequential. Here we are, 10% gradient we just went through there. Gradient changing all the time. 0% now back to 6%. Quite variable on this section, hard to get a rhythm. You can make the chase hard. You can see riders, some will shoot to the front then fall to the back as they respond to the different gradients. riders following Rue up the field and trying to just hold off Manca, who's trying to close and hitch back on to this group. Ostergaard there, working to make sure that they're staying in this group. No one working too hard, lots of blues and greens. And unfortunately for Manca here, that acceleration by Rue has just caused the group to speed up. And whilst they were 60 metres from hitching back on, they've now slipped back out to 100 metres. Rue now 190 metres or so ahead of this group. That's a decent gap. And they're just coming on now to the base of this climb. Starts off at 7% gradient. Straight away 13%. We hit the base of that climb at 28 minutes into the race. We're only just gone through halfway. So we've got this climb and about another good 150 metre climb. Double digits for several hundred metres. See Plager there on the right hand side, and that chase group just slightly getting gapped. Might just be pacing himself now, he's in 7th. It's a decent position. This is a ranked race, so holding on for as long as you can does have its benefits, but you don't want to hold on for so long that you end up going too deep and then just coasting slowly and allowing others to catch you on the second half. You need to pace your effort for the whole event. So the ranked races are, you can find those on rgtdb.com, the RGT database. So a ranked race, riders will exchange ranking points from each other, and if you beat a better rider you'll gain more points. You're a gold rider, for example, and you are beaten by a silver rider, they'll take a good few points off you. So you've got to race all the way to the end. You can't leave early. So Plager just turning over a steady 300 watts. You see he's in the yellow zone there, under his name. Not wanting to go too deep. Up ahead, we've got Samu also now just slightly off the back. Samu's done a lot of racing this week. He was in the Ratio Racing pop-up race on Monday, as was Plager and Ostergaard. A very undulating course, lots of attacks in there. It was a challenging race. Rue was not in that race, so they're possibly a little bit fresher. Des Reed having a good race here, doing well in 2nd place. Currently alongside Ostergaard, Decker and Pascal. But Rue is still our leader, 140 metres up the road. So I was just discussing the ranking systems just then. Samu, Plager, Decker, Pascal, they're gold rated riders. Everyone else in the race is a silver rated rider. You can see how this is looking to be a good result for Des Reed at the moment. He's ahead of a couple of silver riders. Not too far off getting promoted to gold. He's been putting in some good results recently. Riding in the OTR series, the World Tour Bretagne race on the weekend. the Euro Eyes OTR World Tour race the week before. He's had a third place in the Mountain Goat Series on Act 3 domains. It was a more traditional mountain climb route. So he'll be looking to get on the podium today perhaps. So here we see Jan Dekker coming to the front of this group. We know Dekker has good pedigree. He was 5th in that pop-up race on Monday. He was 3rd in the Ikagai Team Road race. That was a 105-kilometre race with 2 kilometres of climbing. That was a star-studded field. But here's Rue back on the front then. Back up to 300 watts, just 330 watts there. Putting in strong continuous effort there, 400 watts. He's making sure he stays off the front as he comes up to the top of that climb then. Let's have a little look. You can see people's rider histories on the RGT DB app. That's where I'm finding this information on the different riders. So Rue hasn't raced for a while, but they did pick up a 2nd place in Le Classique du Jeudi back in June, and also a 2nd place in the Mountain Goats race back in June as well. Also got a couple of wins in the Tour de Wappel. That's a hilly race on the Paterberg course, so they have got some pedigree. As we see now, it really has fragmented over the top of that 2nd climb. Dekker making a move. Pascal going with him, these 2 gold-rated riders, and now chasing down Rue, who's still putting out 5 watts per kilo. This is a fairly undulating descent. It's generally downhill, but there are some short, sharp little zingers, as I know our fan club like to call them. They're short sections of 100 to 200 metres and could be 9–10% gradients, as we see Dekker there putting in a little dig up this zinger, trying to leave Pascal behind. These guys have fragmented the pack. Might take a few more of those efforts from Dekker just to tire out Pascal. Ostergaard and Reed, they're currently in 4th and 5th place. They're going to be going through the same little battle, I imagine, each of them trying to tire the other out, who will last the longest. Just trying to wear each other down. We see once again Dekker flying up the next zinger. Pascal doing what he can to hold on, but that elastic is being stretched. And as we go back, we've got Plager and Samu. We've got another 2-up little fight here. So a little battle is taking place all the way through the field as this race is blown to pieces by these climbs. Not the traditional Mountain Goats course. Usually it's a more straightforward climb up the mountain, sometimes with a bit of a downhill. Today's much more of a rolling course. So this is a magic road course that's been created by John By The Way. So anyone can create a magic road course upload it to the RGT server, and it will create a course that is true to your GPX file based on the gradient and the turns. It will mimic the real life gradients and turns. There's a few different varieties of scenery that you can put on, so the scenery won't match what's there in the real world, but there are a couple of different options that you can have. So this is the Spring in Europe skin, as it's known, and then you've also got the traditional Magic Roads classic skin. At some point I'm sure RGT will release further different varieties to provide some greater variety. But at the moment it's just those two. The Spring classic Europe skin here is the one with the bridges, cobbles on the roads, a few more buildings. Tend not to get those in the original classic skin, showing how it's developed all the time, each new iteration leading to further improvements. So Rue here then seems to be doing a good job. Getting that heart rate up over 180 then. It shows he's not resting up. Power back up between 350 and 400. So they're just cresting one of those little bumps. The power will ease off now as they start to hit the downhill. An opportunity for a little bit of a breather. You can see some of the other battles going on the right hand side. We just had a quick look at Samu and Plager, who are still together. Here's Reed and Østergaard also just matching each other pedal for pedal at the moment. Østergaard having to put out a little bit more effort. And then here's Pascal, who has now been gapped by Dekker. That little battle has been won by Jan Dekker, who's now trying to close in on Rue. And we can see here Pascal, if he's not too careful, we might just fall back into the clutches of Østergaard and Reed. That podium bronze medal position could come back into play as the race continues. But it looks like the top two steps at the moment are going to be Rue and Dekker. Dekker going solo at the moment, hunting down Rue. They've got a big engine that's going to help them on these descents, and then on the flatter sections, the run in to the finish line. 7.5 kilometers to go for our race leader. Another 250 meters or so here for Dekker. Heart rate well up there, like 187. Putting the effort in. 64 kilometers an hour we just touched on there, 40 miles per hour. Some of these downhill sections. You can see that he's still motoring, digging deep, trying to keep that speed up nice and high, trying to capitalise on these downhill sections. Other riders might be easing up and coasting. Dekker's keeping the power on, and here's back to Pascal then. See how their power bar is green and blue. See how they are coasting down the hills, whereas Dekker is pushing on, keeping it in the yellows, orange and even reds on the downhill. There's 64 kilometers per hour. So up high in the sky then, above Rue, the red bar there, working hard, keeping that effort on. They are in the hot seat at the moment. They've just come up to the top of a small climb. Dekker has closed the gap to 150 meters. That will partly be as a result of that climb causing things to contract together. But as Rue now hits the descent, that will stretch back out again. On a rolling course like this, it's quite difficult to know exactly what that gap is. It does vary quite a bit between riders as they swing up and down the hills. You think you're getting close, but then that other rider in front manages to hit the downhill and pull away, and suddenly it's gone from 150 to 250 metres. This distance now is ticking off fairly rapidly. So riders come down out of the rolling hills, making their way back towards the start line then. See Decker now just about to come onto this final steep downhill. And it's some smaller rolling sections for the final 5 kilometres to the line. And look at this, look, Plager and Samu have managed to catch up and pass Reed and Østergaard. And now Østergaard and Reed look like they're slightly going backwards. But if these 4 can group up, it doesn't look like Samu and Plager are hanging around there. They're pushing on. They've gone straight through these 2. But if these 4 group up, then perhaps working together they could reel Pascal back. Shows 480 metres at the minute. But that's because he's on the steep downhill section. And their speed is right up. But he's going to be flying solo for the last 5 kilometres. And if these 4 work together, they could be in with a chance of a podium. So at the moment, it looks like Samu and Plager have said, thank you very much guys, see you later. We'll take that top 5 off you. Not done just yet though. It's rolling downhill, very undulating, steep section. Downhill, and then here flattening out, get that power back on. These 4 aren't completely separated. Reed and Østergaard trying to get back on. It's only 30 metres. Plager and Samu up over 4 watts, 5 watts per kilo, keeping that power on. Here we are then, at the front of the race, 3.8 kilometres to go. And for a second there, Decker was within 100 metres of Rue. And just before that turn was made, around this hairpin, they would have been able to see each other. Rue looks behind. And he's now onto another slight downhill section. That gap's opened back up then. Rue gets the benefit of the downhill, but Decker's working hard, keeping that power on. This is going to be a close battle, I think, towards the finish. A bit further back, we can see now only 100 metres between Samu, Plager. They're chasing down Pascal. Reed and Østergaard trying to get back in touch with those 2. Lots of red numbers there. Here's Rue, up the last little bump then, the last little bit of climbing over 5%, getting that power back on, over 5 watts per kilo, turns his numbers red, trying to hold off the charging Jan Decker. And here's Plager and Samu charging towards Pascal. And Reed and Østergaard, we didn't see quite what happened, whether they eased off or the other 2 just decided to throw caution to the wind and absolutely go for it. Maybe it was just tactics, they were conserving themselves, riding within themselves on that climb, and then attacked on the downhill section so they could use their engines to close those gaps. And here's Pedro Cabramanca. He's got a 330 metre lead from Pedersen in 9th, 4 kilometres out. Here's Pedersen. At the moment he's leaving Gardzielus in 10th place. So that's the top 10. Let's go back to the front of the race then, where our leading couple of riders are just 2.2 kilometres from the finish. Ajru, he's led since the base of the second climb. He's got a 200 metre lead here over Jan Dekker, with 2 kilometres to go. I think it's going to take something special here from Dekker. It's going to be a long sprint if he's got any effort, any energy left. These two have put a big gap into 3rd place. Ajru got what it takes to keep Dekker behind. Slightly uphill towards the finish line. Not too steep, only 1.5%. But when you're riding on your own, any uphill gradient like that, you'll be starting to feel the effects, especially after 48 minutes of riding. I imagine we'll be just over the 50-minute mark. I would say at this point, Rue looking good, 3%, 4%, just briefly there on that corner. They're keeping their watts per kilo high up over 5. So coming through to take the Flamme Rouge. The 1 kilometre to go banner. Just about to cross through that then. They'll be willing the meters down then. Here we are then. You can see the distance to go ticking down quickly now as we hit the final 3 digits, 800. Looks like they're going to take the win then. Dekker's pushing. He's going to run out of road. And I think it's going to be a battle in behind. Pascal looks like he's holding on for 3rd currently. We tick over the 50-minute mark, 500 metres to go. Rue now just always dropped below 3. A big sprint by Dekker. Could just make him worry for the last 100 metres or so. So it looks like Dekker's going to be comfortable in 2nd. Just around this final bend then, we're going to see that start-finish line at the end of this 28.7 kilometre race. Just to put that into context, the men's road race last year was 258 kilometres. So only another 230 kilometres to go. And there we go, there's Rue taking the win then. And Jan Dekker coming through just a few seconds later to take 2nd place. Well done to those two. German from a Belgian. There's Pascal then. Looks like he's going to hold on for 3rd place. He's got 300 metres to go. And a healthy lead over Samu and Plager. Pascal, he got dropped by Dekker. Looked like they eased up for a little bit, managed to get a little bit of rest, get some 2nd wind, and they've pushed on to take 3rd place. So, and now here we go, Samu and Plager. Plager's got a good sprint on him. But Samu does like to go early, but we're approaching the last 200. Plager in behind, getting that draft, and Samu now, you can see his colours Both of them going red. Vega launches that sprint. 14 watts per kilo. Powers past Samu in the last 100 metres there. Take 4th place. Is Østergaard also launching his sprint, 10 watts, 12 watts per kilo, as they, Østergaard and Reed, inside the last 200. Østergaard's just going to pull away there. Take 6th. 7th place for Jez Reed then. 2 Brits in the top 10. We watch this replay of Ajru coming through to take the win in just under 51 minutes, ahead of Jan Dekker, the Belgian rider, and just like last year's World Road Race Championship, where fellow Belgian Wout van Aert took 2nd place on the road. I don't think we had any French riders in today's event. Here's Pedro Cabramanca. Looks like they are going to hold off Pedersen, who has managed to close that gap quite considerably in these closing kilometres. But he's also going to run out of road. So some interesting battles, everyone having to work hard all the way to the finish line. No easy rides on the mountain goats. Always got to work hard all the way to the end of the event. See Ajru there, look at that, 4.4 watts per kilo. Jan Dekker 3.75. 10 seconds behind in the end, not quite able to close down that gap. Pascal comfortably in 3rd ahead of Plager, who won the sprint ahead of Samu for 4th and then 5th. And then another 20 seconds back, Anders Østergaard sprinting ahead of Jez Reed. There's Pedersen coming across the line. And here's the Polish rider, Arta Godziklusk. I'm definitely going to have to work on my pronunciation of their name if they're going to be a regular. As they come up 300 metres from the line now. So that'll be your top 10. Around about 4 minutes separating your top 10 then. So it looked like a challenging course, lots of opportunities, very much a nutritional race, with lots of time gaps then. The Mountain Goats race is every Wednesday at 6 PM UK time. All the details for that are available on rgtdb.com. And it's put together each week, organised by Robert Gill, who's unable to make it this evening. He does a great job every week sorting out courses. So check that out, put that in your calendar. Hope you've enjoyed tonight's broadcast. I think these riders have found it pretty challenging. But it looks like everyone who started is going to finish, so good to see people going all the way through to the end. Remember, please give us a like and a subscribe on Facebook to ZMS Livestream. You can also catch us on estv.co. So I've been Mike Lister. This is Paul Cadell just coming across the line in 11th place. I've been Mike Lister. Thanks a lot for tuning in, everyone. You've been watching on ZMS Livestream. And we will catch you next week. Monday, 5 days of racing, Giro de Europa. Please get involved. We've got prizes. We're going to have fantastic racing, fantastic scenery. We'll be there covering every 7 PM race. So I look forward to seeing you all. Thanks a lot, everyone. See you then.